Join us for a conversation with Academy Award-nominated producer and executive producer of Horizon, an American saga, Mark Gillard, to discuss what it takes to film on location across the state, from building infrastructure and hiring local crews to creating long-term economic benefits for rural communities. Please welcome to the stage Virginia Pearce, Mark Gillard, Brett Burgess, and Jeff Miller.
The scenery and locations of Utah are unparalleled, and film productions from around the world have caught on. It's not just the views drawing productions here. Since 2022, our Rural Utah Film Incentive has helped bring 28 projects to life, generating over $200 million in local spending. And that money shows up in hotels, local restaurants, hardware stores, rental shops, and paychecks across the state.
I think what surprised me the most about when a production was in town is how many people they actually impact.
Being involved in the ranch across the street where we had Kevin Costner, they were only here for 3 or 4 days, but probably spent $3 or $4 million just in our economy for food, lodging. On their downtime, they were coming into local businesses and spending money, and so I think it was a really positive thing. I mean, that's just one film.
You know, retailers they need. You know, they need lumber, they need nails, they need internet. They obviously need food, they need office space. I never stopped to think about that before.
It's really a form of economic diversification, especially for communities that have tourism as their primary economy.
What better promotion than to have a really good movie filmed here? People are going to say, wow, I want to go there. That's a quaint little town. That's beautiful. I think that's a big plus for the whole state of Utah. To me, it's easy money. I don't know why we wouldn't do that and match other areas.
When productions choose rural Utah, the impact is real and immediate. And it doesn't stop there. After the movie or TV show is released and seen around the world, film tourism kicks in. In the last 10 years, film tourism in Utah has generated an estimated $6 billion. Now, the Utah Film Trail invites film lovers to experience these iconic landscapes firsthand, bringing even more money and visitors to the state. Film incentives are much more than a tax break. They truly help communities in every corner of the state. These towns are the heart of our state, and film is helping them thrive today and for years to come.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Virginia Pearce. I'm the director of the Utah Film Commission, and we're just excited to be here. I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves, but first I will just say that Kevin Costner sends his huge regrets that he can't make it. He even said, I didn't even know COVID was still a thing, but that is where he is. So we've got some great representatives in his place, and I'm just going to let everyone introduce themselves. Mark?
Yeah, hey, Mark Gillard is my name. I am a film producer. Have been in your beautiful state making the Horizon films, and like Virginia said, Kevin would have loved to have been here. I would have loved him to be here because that would mean I wouldn't be sitting here. But apart from that, yeah, COVID hit him hard, so we will do our best to fill in. So thank you.
Jeff Miller, local producer, and I was also one of the producers on Horizon. Been here a long time, producing films and projects for many other clients, and love the state. And as usually Kevin's open is, I look much taller in person. So I'll go with that for now.
I'm Brett Burgess, 7th generation Southern Utahn, have deep roots here. Was able to get into the industry through land development. That's been my primary business for years. Hospitality, seeing the opportunities there. and what film has brought to our business. So film and what we do kind of go hand in hand. So that's what's brought us together.
Yeah, and really film and tourism and economic development are really all tools in the same bucket. You know, we're all trying to do the same thing. Film production comes in, they create jobs, they spend money. Film tourism, people see what they create on screen, and as you saw in the video, are creating a lot of economic impact around the state. They want to see the locations that they saw on screen. And then, you know, to Brett's point, he's creating economic impact on what's happening in those films and kind of taking advantage of what's happening. And so I love that we're all part of that same office because we really do similar things. In terms of the Film Commission, we've really been working hard lately to bring film off the Wasatch Front. We've got a couple of tools with that. Our Film Ready program, I know I have a lot of Film Ready people in our audience that have helped us grow the ability for film production to come into some of these counties we're going to talk about and be ready, have the resources that filmmakers need to pull off anything in their county. We have the Rural Film Incentive Program that has really pushed production off the Wasatch Front and allowed us to film in places that maybe hadn't seen it before, creating that impact. I mean, it's about $100,000 to $200,000 a day that film productions are creating when they're in a small town. And so just to start with Horizon, because it's filmed in our state over the last couple of years, and really started in 2017 for us. Derek Mellis, my production manager, and myself were on the set of Yellowstone, season 1, brand new show for Utah. It was filming out of the Utah Film Studio. And we went up and we're doing the tour, and Kevin Costner came right up, like pulled us out of line and tucked behind the set, and he was like, I have a project that I want to bring to Utah. And so that was 2017, and it took 5 years from that point to bring it to fruition in Utah. And I want to talk to Gilly about, you know, I think the history of that project actually went a lot further back than that.
Yeah, it sure did. So Horizon has been a project that's been floating in Kevin's ether for 20 to 25 years. It was something he was developing 25 years ago when he was making Open Range, and it came down to a decision back then, Open Range or Horizon. He wasn't ready to do Horizon. Open Range looked more containable, so he went off and did that, and then it took us another 20-something years to get kind of to where we are now. But in that time, I scouted with Kevin New Mexico. We scouted a whole bunch of different places looking for what would become the anchor point of the town of Horizon. And luckily for us, nothing really kind of matched up. He never really found that spot. And then I believe he was on a road trip with his family driving to his home in Colorado, and he kind of took the scenic route and spent some days in Moab. And it was the Colorado River Road, driving up that road, and the red rocks, and the ranch that he found up there became what he then realized, this is where I have to make Horizon. So that being said, that was the anchor point, that was the town, right? So we still thought we'd be flying all over the country to make up this giant film that's kind of set in different places all around. But the great thing about your great state is the diversity, and we soon realized, oh my God, we can shoot all of it here. If it, you know, the LaSalle Mountains look completely different to the plains down here in St. George. It's one of those things where we got so lucky because of the diversity in all your great counties that enabled us to not have to leave to shoot anything outside of the state. So I think that, to me, for him was almost, I don't know, I'm speaking for him, but it's almost worth the wait. You know, 25 years is a long time, but I think with what ended up on screen and how beautiful your state looks, I think it was well worth the wait.
And this project went on to spend $100 million in the state of Utah. It really, the spend and where they spent it, they filmed over a couple of counties in southern Utah, but through the people that they hired, the cast that they hired, the crew that they hired, and where they spent money, it was over 19 counties. So 2/3 of the state saw an impact on that project. And Jeff is a local producer on the ground that kind of got involved. And when you talk about, how and when you got involved and what that looks like to take a project throughout the state.
Well, for me, everyone, I think, at some level, in whatever you do, you aspire to do something. A lot of times I thought the IMAX films I'd done or the network television things I was lucky enough to work on was enough in my career as I get older. But I kept hearing about Horizon and it was going to be the largest independent film produced to date, budgetarily. And I thought, how do you get on that? And I gave them a call a couple times, and a couple times they called me. And I was doing another project, and they decided to give me an interview down in Moab. And I showed up, and there were a couple other gentlemen that didn't look as though they really wanted to interview me. But then there was Kevin and his executive producer and these guys, and one thing led to another, and they hired me. And it was literally out of a movie I'd seen where the first day I showed up, they'd started shooting for a week. And I walked in the office, and they're tearing someone else's name off the door and putting my name on the door and giving me the key to his condo. And oh boy, I'd really hit the big time. But it was fascinating that here's this world-class crew from somewhere else that I got to have a chance to impact with the wonderful environment in Utah, both from a crew and the commissioner level. I can't imagine, you guys can't imagine what it means for outsiders to come into these rural communities and the impact of just the local commissioners and how helpful they've been to us. I mean, certainly building codes in each area, they don't always understand what we're doing. It's always odd that, I think it's the wonderful thing about filmmaking where you don't really have to do anything to invite them in. All you had to have was the backdrop, which we have. And here they come, and all they want to do is give you money. We just want to give you money. It's like, wow, if my kids could do that, I would love it. But so it's the beauty of Utah is we're still very cooperative. Kevin likes to say that, in Salt Lake, where we've had so much filming out in rural counties, when you put up the bright lights and some things, it's an event. And what happens when you have an event, someone gets inspired. A lot of times it could be just someone at home that wants to be closer to their family and tell more stories to their family. Or it becomes, this event about making movies becomes an event of storytelling. And I think that's been the beauty of your rural counties, is you've all been welcoming, you've all been exuberant, and it's sometimes an inconvenience, but it becomes a very fiscally oriented, positive thing. And that's really the great experience here.
I mean, if you haven't seen a major production show up in a town, it feels like a town is adding to your town. I mean, they need all the same things. They need transportation, they need lodging, they need food, they need, construction, they need to build things. It's an entire town that springs up overnight. And I've heard Kevin talk about, he loves the magic of that and seeing it come to life. And when we took visitors down on set to Horizon, I think the biggest takeaway legislators had were, so you're telling me they built that town and they're gonna burn it to the ground and build it again? I love this industry. It's like, the spend that happens on set is kind of an amazing thing, and you have to work really quickly, and you're doing things in a way that doesn't often make sense to a regular business person. And Jeff, I think in that 19 counties, there are some very interesting pockets of spend around the state. And do you have any specific examples that?
Well, it's a circus, and even for I think of Duchesne County, a little bit sometimes, not much, maybe 3 times my whole life, but I get on Horizon.
You love Duchesne County.
Exactly. No offense, but I get on Horizon, and here's this wonderful wrangler that is world class and a professional, and guess where he comes from? Duchesne County. And who knew? I mean, we sit here and as Utahns, we look across the board and wouldn't it be cool if I was from New York or, hey, from Los Angeles? I'd be as cool as Mark. I'm never going to be as cool as Mark. But what we do get here is we get the fact that we're productive, We're positive. It's a creative environment, and our government agencies and you all have been incredibly supportive, which draws people in. I mean, I use Washington County as an example. They're the favored kids right now from our standpoint, because we go to Washington County and Joyce says positive things, and all of a sudden a developer sitting next to me decides, oh, that sounds like a fun idea, I'll build something. And they will come, hopefully. You know, all he's saying is hopefully. But since we were in Washington County and Joyce Kelly encouraged us and Virginia encouraged us and Derek Mellis got us down there, all of a sudden we're bringing more films to Washington County. We want to go there again. We want to hire the gentleman from Duchesne. Maybe we'll even go to Duchesne. And every county gets touched by the money that comes in, and the advertising and the business that's generated from the images that are created are such a positive thing for the state.
Yeah, Brett, speaking of Washington County, you saw an opportunity with Horizon that came in, and Kevin's enthusiasm for Southern Utah. And tell us a little bit about what that was like.
So my entire career has been about infrastructure. We build roads, subdivisions, lots, houses, hospitality. And as I saw the production come into Southern Utah, you know, it's interesting because I was born in 1980, and I still feel rural. I mean, Washington County still feels rural to me at some extent, but I've watched it grow, and I've watched that our only industry forever was construction. You know, now we're getting healthcare is becoming world-class in our neck of the woods. Tourism, and you guys feel it here, and throughout Southern Utah, tourism has become big. Hotel, you know, hospitality's become big. I know there's a great program here at SUU for hospitality. There's so many things that came, and as I saw these guys and saw what they brought in to Southern Utah, Jeff, we were speaking a little bit earlier, and he, you know, made the analysis or the analogy that they're like carnival workers. You know, they come in, but they always need a place to stay. They need clothes to buy. They need to spend money. They need to go out to the restaurants. And I saw the direct economic impact of what film brought to Washington County, and I could see that as a jumping off point to the rest of Southern Utah. I mean, red dirt runs in my veins. I love Southern Utah. I love all parts of it. You know, the eastern parts. I love all of Utah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was born and raised down here. But you could see the economic impact that these guys brought, but it was localized. You know, they would be in one area, and a lot of my friends are like, well, where are they filming right now? And I'm like, you know, they're out on the Shivwoods Indian Reservation, and they drive by and see all the trailers and everything going. But the impact to our communities and the residents, it kind of seems small as far as their footprint, but when they were out and about and living in it, they were spending a lot of money. I saw our copier people that were out there fixing copy machines, and the you know, any of our local contractors were out there helping build sets and different things, and it was incredible to see another industry make its way into Southern Utah to help us build on, and I wanted to be a part of that.
We were just at the film department at SUU talking to some of the students, and the idea of storytelling, and that's something that they're really focused on, and we all kind of resonated with that, because while we are creating economic impact, it's also about the creative economy, and it's about using skills, and all of these young people in our state, 4,000 of them across the state are in some kind of film program. You know, talk about Kevin's love of story, and also when you started to look in Utah for the locations, I mean, that was a process.
Yeah, so obviously story is the big thing for Kevin, and like I was telling the students, it's the idea to go back to the script. If you have a good story to start with, you've always got something to go back to, right? If you get into trouble, you go back to the script, go back to the story. And when we're out, I must have come to Moab and St. George probably, I don't know, 10 different trips pre-shooting. Coming in, our locations manager would find the most fantastic sites, and Kevin would fall in love with them on the computer, and then we'd get out here and realize, oh, you can't get anyone actually to the site. That would then make Kevin even more want to shoot there, because it was like, well, no one's ever shot there before, let's shoot there. And it's like, well, there's no roads, so how are we getting everyone in? And that would be, that was one of our major, I wouldn't say problem, but learning to try and curb our enthusiastic locations manager by saying, hey, at least let us see them first and decide whether we can actually film there. I know it looks amazing. I know it looks like something that should be on film, but we have to try and get 300 people down there, 500 head of cattle, 60 horses, and 30 covered wagons. And unless you have a helicopter service that can chopper all this stuff in, it's not going to work. So I think the great thing about it is we did go to a couple of places. I remember we were on I think it's the San Rafael Swell, and we're in a place called Fuller's Bottom, which we kind of came to the conclusion at the end of that shoot. I remember our first AD getting together and thanking everyone for such a hard shoot, because we had to hire these trucks that looked like they came out of Jurassic Park to these giant wheeled SUVs that would take the crew in, get us into the middle of nowhere, and we'd work, and it was such a beautiful place and was such an amazing place. At the end, we came to the conclusion that Kevin has something wrong with him. He 100% just wants to test us, and I think he wanted to shoot somewhere where no man had ever shot before. And at the end of it, Jeff, right, it was amazing. But it was hard work. It's hard. It's definitely hard. But the locals, the team, the people that are involved make it doable. And from PAs to location scouts to the top-notch head of departments, they all loved what we were doing and loved where we were doing it.
Well, and I'll just say, and Jeff, maybe we can add to this story, but that particular shoot was complicated, to say the least, and weather did not cooperate, and so a place that looked very dry and easy to get into one day was all of a sudden a flood, as those of you who live in certain areas know. But kudos and shout out to the BLM and public lands. I mean, Derek was calling everyone he could think of on the federal and state side to say, like, okay, how do we make this work? I think we can make it work, but can we work together to ensure? And the Carbon County and Emery County and so many people got involved. And I think that's also the partnership aspect. Is it's the crew, but it's also this state infrastructure that I think we do well in Utah on that.
Well, I was only going to mention his name. His name was Andrew Hodge. And if any of you ever wanted a public stoning, I nominate Andrew Hodge as the first victim.
Oh my, don't tell him that. He was the location manager. Brett, talk a little bit more about how you see this evolving in Southern Utah, and that while we've been in the film industry for a long time in Utah, it's 100 years. We celebrated in 2024. So the first film was actually made and got its start right here in Cedar City in 1924, called The Deadwood Coach. And the legacy that has created, and the infrastructure, and the just passion that people have for film. We're a very movie-loving state. And I think Brett really saw that opportunity to, as you know, Kanab and Cedar City were hotbeds of film in the 50s and 60s, and then that kind of died out with the Western genre. And now, as we know, the Western genre is back. And so, with what you're building, what do you see the future look like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much like that. The one that sticks out in my mind is Robert Redford, the Electric Horseman. He comes out of Dick's Cafe on St. George Boulevard, and my uncle would go open that thing every morning. He had the key, and he'd put the coffee on and get everything going at Dick's. So you see that spirit that is in Southern Utah, and so many of these great films and so many things that could be made here. We talk about our diverse climate. We have about every scenery or any backdrop you would need in Southern Utah, or in Utah, not just Southern Utah. But I also see the opportunity, because you do see, and it's I guess a problem for them, good for us. But you even hear about all the productions leaving Hollywood. We are that right to work state. We are that place that you can come to do stuff a little bit differently. And I just see that the opportunity that people coming out of Hollywood, Utah is such a great jumping off point for that. We are close to it if they have to get, some sort of equipment or something to our part of the country. They can get it here quickly. We have, good infrastructure here, but if we have just that much more, and if we can nudge it that much further, I can see it being something that can really flourish here. Plus, I mean, we just went through the new film program here, and it's incredible. We want to keep our kids in our state. This is what we are, and we are that beehive state. We need to get together and continue to build new industry and keep these people in our state rather than exporting them. I'm a little bit selfish because my son wanted to go into film. He's finishing up a degree at the U, and I see this opportunity of this kind of, I don't want to say true exodus out of California or wherever, but there are a lot of other places you can film, and with digital media and different types of editing and stuff, you can do stuff remotely. So I think the sky's the limit for us here. And again, I think that if we can still work together, if we can have the support of our state legislators and the people that are making decisions, it would be huge for us. They need to see this, especially for the rural areas like Duchesne, like Kane County, Grand County, all the places I love to go and enjoy. These are the places that film can come in and impact and put money into these economies, and then be able to help any industry there, the hospitality, the tourism, whatever it is.
Well, maybe Mark and Gilly, or Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the Rural Film Incentive Program and how that enabled you to bring Horizon here? Because while we do have the locations and we do have the infrastructure and we have the crew, and Kevin loved it here, that was the final piece that he couldn't do it without. So,
well, I mean, everyone and I always have to say, everyone is always looking for the dollar from the legislature and from the governor, from everybody. Hey, give us this, give us that. And I remind myself that the film industry gives something back. We do need something to encourage a lot of people to come here, and it's always the incentive to get people's attention, because you're right, we have the beauty, we have a lot of the crew, but one thing that always, the kicker is, hey, the Nike shoes might be on sale in the morning. It didn't mean you didn't buy all the other things in the store and make the store very profitable. You just incentivized someone to come into your store with maybe the $3.99 eggs. And that is the film industry. I mean, the beauty of it is we come in and you might have incentivized us to get there, to get our attention. But once we get there, we make sure we fill up the coffers. We're environmentally and socially responsible generally. And then, like the circus, we pack up and we leave. And sometimes, and hopefully we always try to leave it as clean as we came or better. And sometimes you might need a road that you didn't have, that we might need, that we helped you build. And there's a lot of positive things about our industry. And like I say, kind of just like your mother-in-law or father-in-law or someone you don't like, we leave. We get up and we go, and you don't have to worry about us anymore.
wow. Got anything to add? And what is the future bringing for you, Gilly?
Well, I just wanted to add one little thing too, is the incentive is that important that, look, as beautiful as it is here, and how easy it is to say this is our anchor point where we want to set up, and this is the town of Horizon. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and all of a sudden, unfortunately, if New Mexico is making it better, you start to go, okay, well, maybe New Mexico can work because we can get there. So the importance of it is so important, because not only did we fall in love with the place, it made it doable, and it made it achievable, and it made New Mexico look kind of like the scungy neighbor. There's no one from New Mexico here, right? Yeah. And look, the future here is amazing. Jeff and I have multiple projects we are trying to bring back here next year, and plan to bring back here next year, along with Kevin's giant dream, which he is pushing the rock up the hill, and it's getting further and further up the hill, and he hopes to be back here very soon. So,
Brett, anything further to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, I see this as such a great opportunity for all of us. And I love that this is the I'm speaking to other rural Utahns, that it's such a great thing to be able to have these people. As you guys know, we've had, and I participated, and we've had the Ironman in Southern Utah that's now leaving, and to watch that impact, it was great to bring in. It brought a lot of exposure, and a lot of things to our state. It became so big that it was a little bit hard to navigate. And the thing that was great to see when these, just like Jeff said, they do pack up and leave. They come in, they spend, and they leave, So I see it as such a great thing if there's no other, and I don't want to say no other opportunity, but if you have that diverse landscape, if you have those areas that we can get into Utah and then show the landscape that we have to film in, we've got so many opportunities to spread this wealth throughout all of our communities. And I just see that having that Utah spirit being such a positive thing for our state and for all of you guys out there. So I'm excited to see what we can bring to, into the future.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us, and thanks for having us.